Welcome back to another episode of the Jesus Cartel. With me, as always, I guess I can say, it's weird because I said that last week too, but you weren't with me. But
Right.
you are with me now.
Well, but I would like to say that I was here in spirit. And here's why. Because y'all couldn't have an episode of Jesus Cartel without acting like I was here.
That's true.
So it really did make me feel good. Now,
You did still pretend you were here.
still pretend I was here. It wasn't as good, but, I expected that it was okay. I mean, the show went the way I expected it. You felt a internal need to carry the show. We heard very little from Jimmy, and I understand that. I don't think it was really planned that way, but internally you knew that you had to step up and be the man, and I understand that. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, I can't imagine how intimidating it was for young Jimmy,
Yep.
to just because the Jesus Cartel, which if you've never been on the show, it's hard to tell, but there's also a different dynamic when it's just you and I versus when there's a guest. Because when we have a third, a lot of times we'll pitch directly to the guest, but when it's one-on-one, like you got to interject.
That's right.
You know what I mean? You gotta be able to grab it, because if I don't see you grab it, then I feel like you don't
Right.
have anything. You're not ready. And so I just gotta kind of.
So Jimmy did a lot of agreeing with you, but not interjecting.
Yeah, and those are the growing pains we experienced early on in Jesus Cartel when we first started, kind of trying to figure out the dynamic of how it fits and how to jump in the conversation without taking over the conversation and things like that. But for Jimmy and I, that was our first podcast. We'd never done, you know what I mean? It was the first time we'd ever had that dynamic interaction, and so it was.
Yeah, I really don't think it's that. I think he's just not an A-lister, but it's okay.
I thought Jimmy did a great job.
I think he did an okay job. Hey, and you don't think you did a great job either, because I know you. I just know how you are. We're gonna get into that in a little while. But, we're gonna get into that in a little while.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So I have the fun of not having any idea what's going on this week, and so I am actually really excited about it. That's my favorite weeks, is when you pick a topic and don't tell me.
Yeah.
And I just enjoy the surprise of it. But
the problem is I'm still picking the topic in my head.
Like currently while we're talking.
Still thinking about what direction.
Well, you wrote something down.
I did, and but that's not really the topic. It is something that I do want to look at. So how have things been going with you, Andrew?
Man, things have been really good just in life in general. I think I would say that I'm, at this moment in time, the most surrendered that I've ever been to the Lord. My hope is that I can say that every time you see me. Unfortunately, that's not always true. There are times and temptations in life where I say temptations, people automatically think like sinful things, but just temptations to distract. You know what I mean? It's like I can get focused on taking care of my family really well and things like that, and it's not ever intentional. It's inadvertent, but sometimes you don't recognize it. But maybe there's a day or two where the Lord kind of took a back burner to some things that you needed to get done, and that's not the case right now. That's not the case right now. I feel like I'm on top of it. I'm on top of the world. I feel like He and I are in the most harmonious place we've ever been, and feel really good, man, spiritually, which is cool because physically I don't feel as good. But spiritually, man, it's like nothing could go wrong. Got to see God do some really cool things the last few days. Not gonna like throw the personal business of people out there, but we had a situation happen with a client in the last week. It was a really big deal. Saw God move some things around in a way that only He moves things around. Defied all of the normal protocol of situations, and it's just like, man, God just doesn't care about those things. So it's fun to see God step into situations, because there's so many situations that we wonder, like, what you gonna do here, brother? And we don't always know. We don't always understand why it seems like maybe He didn't respond the way we thought He would. But it's really fun when He does respond the way that we thought He would, and it actually is kind of straight down the middle. It's like we expected God to do something, and He did it, and He did it fast. And so I'm really encouraged by that. I've had a lot more people take intentional steps to get involved in stepping in the next place in their life and their ministry, kind of stepping away from the world and stepping into what God's calling them to, actually having some conversations about leaving the world behind and stepping into greater things. And this is with very successful people, very career oriented people who are saying, hey man, I don't know if I care about my career anymore. I just need to pursue. And man, it's a lot of really cool stuff happening. It's fun to be a part of. I'm watching a church that was 3 years ago, by most people's accounts, dead. I'm watching it be full of life and growing faster than 90% of the established churches that I know, because they're taking one radical step of obedience after the next, and you're seeing so many people step up. And it's there's a lot of disappointment in ministry. I'm going to say this out loud. I've got to see a lot of success lately, and that's been fun. You don't always get to enjoy windows like that, but I have seen a lot of success. Seeing some young people step up and lead an event this Friday, you know, like that's a big deal to me. That's a big deal to me. There's a lot of pouring into those guys that has happened over the years by a lot of strong spiritual men of God and a whole lot of the Holy Spirit Himself, and to see them step up and be leaders. Not followers, but leaders. They've taken all the initiative. They've done all of the legwork. And I mean, they've been harassing me about getting other students there. And I love that. I love that. And I even had one of them reach out to me and asked me to remind my students last night. I forgot, but a student knew, and a student that I would not have expected to be the one that knew about it. Said, hey man, what about the event? And I was like, I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, I had a football coach ask me about it on Tuesday.
Yeah,
and so and he'd been telling his people, no man, all those things are good. We're seeing God move in a lot of different ways. You know, you came and preached at Thrive Church a couple weeks ago and talked about your all-in move, and then we followed it up and talking about, you know, how do we love God with all of our heart, all of our soul, and all of our mind. And from those couple of messages, man, we've seen people decide to give up nicotine. We've seen people decide to go forward with their relationship with somebody where they had been holding back. We've seen people decide to go ahead and get married. You know, I mean, just in the last couple of weeks, I've talked to several people that are getting engaged right now, or fixing to go ahead and get married right now. And a lot of those conversations about, you know, pushing all your chips in, or you know, it's coming from that, you know. So it's been amazing to see those things. People step up. Had another one that had talked to you that called me about sharing his testimony and being able to minister to other people. I had another one from a different church message me yesterday and say, hey, look, never been through addiction and stuff before. I've had family members that have. And I went to my pastor and I told him that I would really like to try to minister to people in this area. And he told me to call you. And so we're going to meet tomorrow, you know. And so we're seeing a big shift out there of a lot of people wanting to, you know, go all in with Christ and you know, forsake their ways and to follow Him. So I love it. I love it. We just entered into a new series at Thrive Church on the Beatitudes, and you know, just how God showed us to do that. You know, I've never preached on the Beatitudes before, you know, but now God's got us given 6 weeks to 9 verses.
Yeah,
you know, and it's cool because I assigned 2 different people to preach during that series, and one of them's never preached on a Sunday morning before. And I said, okay, this is what you get to preach on.
Can I ask who that is right now? Or
yeah. So I did the intro in the first one. Then I'm doing the second and third one this week, and then Tyler Dean's going to do the 4th and 5th one. Then I do the 6th and 7th, and then Jimmy Halsey's going to do the last one. Yep. So Jimmy's going to end the series, and basically I gave him 3 verses to preach.
That's wonderful.
You know, the last Beatitude has the 3 verses, so he's going to preach, you know, the verse there, and then the last 2 conclusions. So he'll do the last one, which is about being persecuted, and then he'll follow it up and do the ending of the whole deal. And so, man, it's amazing to be able to see, and as soon as I told him, man, his eyes just lit up. He's excited. Tyler's been excited about it. This is something that they've studied and able to look into some more. So, man, God's good. And if you get a chance to study the Beatitudes or to see our our videos of that, almost all of them mean something different than what you think they mean.
Yeah.
I mean, it's if this past week was about the poor in spirit, and I don't know that I really understood what that meant. It's the gospel, but I didn't understand that, and they sure didn't understand that then, because there was no such thing as the gospel then. And so anyhow, just being able to see God move in those ways is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, man. A window of seeing a lot of success is always refreshing to the soul.
Yeah.
I will say I've hit the point in ministry and in life that I don't lose heart anymore. Early on, there was some, definitely a struggle of mine when we would see people fall away and things like that. But I don't lose heart anymore because I'm able to see the victory on a larger scale than in the individual, case by case situations. And so I'm still encouraged by what God is doing on a large scale, even though sometimes on the small scale, it doesn't always happen exactly the way that we thought. But it doesn't mean that it's not wildly refreshing for those small individual battles to see a lot of those start to come around too.
Well, I want to, that's something I want to mention when you were saying that, and we're going to get into some of this in the podcast that you don't know about in just a minute. But just when you saying that, okay, because a lot of people, and I heard Jimmy, I think it was Jimmy talked about it last week, maybe on here, but how when you sow into somebody and you pour into them and then it doesn't work and it's difficult. And I remember something he said. He came and talked to me about it one time and asked me, how do you deal with it? And I said, well, I deal with it by focusing on you, by focusing on the ones that are doing good. Well, when you just said that, something I thought about is this. So when the bad things happen and the people don't, respond the way they should, or they do for a little while and they fall off or whatever and everything, we look at the big picture, right? We look at, we say, well, we can't focus on the little things. We got to focus on the big thing. Hey, in the end, we win. There are a lot of good going on, that kind of stuff. But we need to make sure that when we do that, which is true, that's the way I do it. We need to make sure that when we do that, but we also need to make sure that we don't do that on this side with the wins. That we don't say, oh, well, those are good, they're cute, but we're looking for the big wins.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so we need to always celebrate the small wins and celebrate those, but then maybe don't look at the small battles and stuff quite so much and look at the big picture there. I guess is what I'm trying to say. I never said that before, so it probably didn't come out exactly right. But when we are looking at the big picture on the bad things, so we don't focus on the little things, let's don't all just look at the big picture on the good things.
Yeah. Celebrate a small win with a confetti cannon.
Yeah.
But don't be devastated by a small loss with a extended period of mourning.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that you can't treat them as equal sides of a coin. They're not.
No, because if you do that, then it's kind of like Super Bowl or bust.
Right. Yeah. Which is a stupid thing to say.
Right. If our team doesn't win the Super Bowl, if every single thing doesn't go our way, then it's a terrible season.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. And so let's make sure, because we got to remember in our line of work, which is God's work, when we talk about success, when we talk about winning, when we talk about goal, we're talking about people. We're talking about lives. You know what I'm saying? We're not talking about an extra $10,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
We're talking about people's lives for eternity. When you talked about the young man that got the devastating news, and I wasn't just news. What happened was devastating, and but he took it like a champ, and he didn't ask me to do anything. He took it, and said, "Hey, hey, we're gonna be all right. We're gonna be all right because I was there with him when that happened. Hey, we're gonna be all right. He didn't ask me to do anything. We're gonna be all right.
Yeah.
And then he has to go away, and then people, start coming to me, and they're like, "Man, that's tough. That's tough." And then the next round of people start coming to me. Now, what are we going to do?
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do? So you're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do anything. You're going to just sit back and watch what God's going to do
Right.
in this deal. And didn't make anybody any promises. Didn't say "Thus said the Lord" out loud. Didn't do any of those things. Hey, look, God's got this. This is His. This is His person. We don't need to be leading a rebellion or anything like that. We just need to watch what God does here. Let's be confident in what He's going to do. And man, just like that, hey, it starts turning around, and next thing you know, it's done.
Right.
Yeah. And it's amazing.
Yep. So who is the best football team in the NFL right now? Well, if you were going to answer that question without any bias, who would that be?
I don't know. The Seahawks won last year.
Seahawks,
a lot of people probably say the Rams.
Okay.
Maybe would be just because they added the best defensive end in football. Now they're in the same division as the Seahawks, but Seahawks did lose their offensive coordinator, so probably the Rams.
Probably the Rams. Okay. Who is the best franchise in football history? Most successful?
Most successful, probably Green Bay Packers. I don't know. Hopefully not the Dallas Cowboys.
Right. One more kind of obscure question. Who was the best football team in 1977?
Yeah, so it's a Baltimore. I really don't know.
Yeah, right. And so I guess the picture that I'm trying to build here is: are you building your spiritual life to win just this season?
Right.
Are you trying to build your spiritual life to be a successful franchise? Because a franchise, even though it is long-standing tenure, you didn't have to think before you answered.
Right.
Something came to your mind immediately. And whether the answer that you gave is necessarily a correct answer
it's
or
just
not,
in my mind. That's what
you had something come to mind immediately, which would have spanned over the generations. It's not just what you did for me lately.
Right.
And so that's the kind of life that I want to live. It's not Super Bowl or bust for me because I might win this year, and then 50 years from now, the Skull family is irrelevant because Andrew just had one good year. You know what I mean? That's not what I want. I want to build a successful franchise out of my family. Yeah. And so that's going to require consistency. It's not Super Bowl or bust. I might not nail I'm not going to nail every moment, though it's not because of lack of effort. But as we learn and we mature, we figure out later down the road that there were probably better ways to handle that than I decided to at the time. So I don't nail every moment, but we're building a franchise here. It's not Super Bowl or bust. And the Skull franchise keeps getting better.
Amen.
Keeps getting better. And that's the type of life that you want to live. We're not trying to be the best team this year.
Right. And a lot of people talk about legacy like when you die. But that doesn't help people now. I would like to think that I've left a legacy of this part of my life.
Right.
I would like to think that I left a legacy of leaving my career and coming to do what God called me to do. I think I like to think that I left a legacy of how to raise children and how to do that properly. I would think that I left a legacy of how to be an associate pastor for 20 years when I could have been a senior pastor before I ever become an associate pastor. I would like to think that there's a lot of legacies that we've left while we're in our prime.
Right.
Because we're building that franchise. We're building those things.
Yeah. I'm going to say a really hard thing for a second, and I'm just going to give a preface to my own family, who, if they listen to this, I just want them to understand that I don't mean anything ugly by what I'm about to say, but I do need to use a very personal story to build a picture here. But I love all y'all. This is not a hard feelings type of thing. So a lot of people know, most people know, if you've been around me for any amount of time, that I was adopted. So Skull is not my blood lineage. I was adopted into the Skull family, but my legacy is going to be a Skull legacy
Mm.
because I was adopted into that family, right?
Mm.
He made a choice to bring me in. And for that reason, that legacy of his, through his love, through his obedience, is going to continue. It's going to benefit his name despite whatever type of father he was.
Mm.
And so for my birth father, and this is why I was trying to like
Mm.
I'm not upset. This is not me trying to be ugly in any way. I need to be able to paint this picture clear. That could have been a legacy for his family.
Yeah.
But because he didn't handle that situation correctly in the beginning, I'm not saying it was his fault. There's a lot of detail out there that's very, it was a very difficult situation. But because the choice was made not to tend to this, now that legacy that was intended to be a legacy of his lineage is not a legacy of his lineage.
Right.
It's a legacy of someone else's lineage. And so I tell you this to tell you that tend to your things.
Yeah.
If you want to build something successful, you have to tend to the things correctly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to become somebody else's. And look, we're not in here to compete against each other. I'm not trying to make the Skull franchise overshadow the Russell franchise because we're two parts of the same. I believe our legacies are intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I think the Skulls make the Russells better. I think the Russells make the Skulls better. And I hope that 300 years from now, Skulls and Russells are still taking care of each other. That's my hope. And so it's not a competition thing where it's like, well, I got to do this, otherwise Clay might take part of my legs. It's not like that. It's just everything that God has prepared for you in advance. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do them. It says that He prepared good works for you in advance. It doesn't say that He's going to force you to do those.
Right.
And so if you neglect a good work that God prepared for you in advance, that work's going to get done.
Oh, yeah.
It just might not be by you.
Yep.
And what a shame that would be.
Yeah, and it's not just because of you. I mean, it doesn't just affect you, but it affects those in your family and stuff. If God has a work for me to do and I don't do it, there's a good chance because of how intertwined we are that you would do it.
Yeah.
Well, the benefits of that now go to your family and those that are around you versus to me and those that are around me.
Right.
That's just the reality of it. You know, I mean, just for instance, a friend of mine comes to me with a real estate deal. He's in business and stuff, but he doesn't do outside deals, right? And so, but he needs to, and I've encouraged him to. So he comes to me with a real estate deal and says, "Hey, man, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think about it?" And I was like, "Well, let me look into it." And I look into it. I'm like, "Man, if you don't do it, I'm gonna do it."
Yeah.
It's a deal, and this is, and it's probably an easier deal than you're ever going to find. I'm not saying it's a better deal, but it's an easier deal. For you trying to break into something, this is easy. So not only is it a no-brainer financially, but it's easy. It won't take a lot of your time. And he said, "Okay." And I said, "Let me know. I'll help you with it any way I can." Well, at the same time that I told him that, I'm dealing with something else that I'm having to deal with on my side. And I didn't get back with him immediately, but I kind of felt like he didn't do the deal. You know? So I called him. I said, "Man, did you do the deal?" He said, "Man, I didn't. I just got busy." I said, "So you found another deal?" "No, I just got busy with my regular stuff," which is great, but that's his regular stuff. It's not extra. It's not, it's his job, and everything. And so I found the guy that did do the deal. I said, "Well, I want to know, because if this deal's still out there, then I'm going to go look for it." I mean, I gave my friend 2 months. I mean, I shouldn't have gave him 2 days, know? And so I make a couple phone calls and I find out real quick who did it. Well, it's a guy like me.
Yeah.
It's a guy like you. It's a guy that we both know real well that's on top of stuff that did it. And so I called and talked to him about it, and it ended up being twice as good as what it looked like to begin with. And he's like, "This is one of the best deals I've ever done."
Right.
Now on the grand scheme of things, he does a lot of deals, and it was small. But as far as how easy it is and how profitable it is and how much of a no-brainer it is, he did. Somebody was going to do it.
Yeah.
I, to be honest, I would have rather it been this guy
Mm-hmm.
because I want to see this guy come up a little
Yeah.
bit. Now, this guy over here, it was just a rich got richer,
Yeah.
you know. And so I told him the story, and he's like, "Man, I wish the first guy would have done it too," because you
Yeah.
know he's like I am. I mean, but he's like, well, "I wasn't gonna turn it down,"
Right. Yeah.
you know. And so that's the way it works in the financial world. That's the way it works in God's kingdom. It's going to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
You got to seize those opportunities.
Right. Yeah. Well, tell us what we're getting into today, man.
So I was so as a lot of you know, I made a commitment to read more this year, and my goals are doing good. I should have at the end of July looked at every goal and made sure on everything, but on the few that are on the top of my mind, I'm knocking them out of the water, you know, and you know with my other goals. But I got like 10 or 12. So at the end of July, I should have looked, or beginning of July, however that works, I should have looked. I guess the end of June. I should have looked and seen exactly where we are. Maybe there'll be something good I can do this weekend. But there's a couple that I know that I'm knocking out of the water, and one of them is with my reading. Instead of reading 6 books a year, this year I wanted to read a chapter a day, 5 days a week, which should bring me somewhere around 13 books for the year. Well, as of last night, I finished my 11th book.
Oh,
okay,
nice.
So I'm already ahead of the game there, and I've 3 or 4 chapters, maybe 4 chapters into the other one, because I was reading 2 side by side. So while I went to the beach with my family this week, I only spent one day at the beach. It was 4 hours, you know. So a beach trip was 4 hours for me by the time we did everything else. But I started reading this book, and it's the first non-Christian book that I've read this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Earn It. And it's Chris McCarthy is the author. And I don't know if he's a famous author or not. I did become friends with him on Facebook, and I sent him a message, and I told him about that I've read 300 something pages of the book at the time, and I told him that it reminded me a lot of Jesus Cartel. And so he messaged me back, said, "Man, that's awesome, and we need to stay in touch." And he's going to check out Jesus Cartel. So anyhow, he's from upstate New York. And he wrote this book called Earn It, and it's the first non-Christian book I've read this year. And it's like a men's self-help type book. And to be honest, when I'm reading this book, and I sent you this text from the beach, but I made a joke. I said, "Man, I think that me and you wrote this book in a former life." You know, because this book sounds like us, you know. So, you know, I feel like the guy's probably a Christian that doesn't come up in the book at all, but at the same time, I feel like he is. But I'm reading the book, and basically, he's just talking about being a better man. And I don't really think that it's just for men. There was a couple of women in my life that I think could greatly benefit from this book that would really resonate with them too. I don't think it's just for men, but I think, you know, that's what he's geared it towards. And so basically his concept there is that you have the battleground, which is your body and everything. You know, you got the battleground there, and no, the base is your body. So, you know, this is your base. This is where you start. You can't do good in other areas if you're not taking care of your body.
Battleground's got to be the mind.
Yeah, and then that's right. and then and then the next part's the boardroom. Okay, like I said, I ain't studied it, just read it, finished it last night. So the base is your body, the boardroom is your job and all that and everything, and your business, and then the battleground is everything else. Basically, your mind, your sleep, your how well you recover, you know, all the extracurricular things that you do, that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of, you know, his concept there. And so he goes through each piece of it and talks about, you know, and everything. And a lot of it is the same information, because a lot of the same mindsets that you have about your body carry over into the boardroom and carry over into your extracurriculars and stuff. And so anyhow, he goes through all this and everything. But then there's 2 parts of it I want to talk about. I'm trying to think of which one I want to talk about today. But, well, we'll go ahead and hit it real quick. But last night, I get to the big climax of everything. And I get to the, hey, we've done went through, we went through your body, we went through the boardroom, we went through, your mind and all this kind of stuff. And then we get to the big climax. And do you know what the big draw card to it all is? Identity.
Praise God.
The big deal. And it's the same thing for us. Hey, when you know who you are, you know what to do. Mm-hmm. Right? And so that's his mindset there is, hey, we don't try to become more disciplined. We are disciplined. Mm-hmm. And as we're disciplined, we even get any better at it.
Yeah.
But we're not trying to be disciplined because triers are, not doers and, wanters and that kind of stuff. But we're not trying to be more disciplined. We are disciplined. And because we're disciplined, we grow more disciplined. And so every area, that's kind of the mindset there. And so it fits in so perfect for us. So here I am, the first few pages thinking we wrote it. Then it gets to the big climax, here at the end, and it's all about identity, which we know is the big deal. Yeah. Now, for us, we put our identity in the finished work of Jesus Christ. And because of that, hey, the battle's already won. We're not fighting to victory. We're fighting from victory, right? And with him, he's basically, trying to say the same thing. He just, may not have the same relationship with God that we have, Right. So it all comes back to identity, right? But he talks about, now he's challenging you at the end. It's called an earn it mentality, right? Yeah. Earn it mentality. He doesn't want anything to be given. He wants to earn it all, right? And so the earn it mentality, he tells you, all right, let's walk through it and let's earn it for a day, and this is what this looks like. Now let's earn it for a week. Yeah. And this is what we got to look for because, if all we're going to do is earn it for a day, it's going to be different principles to earn it for a week.
Yes.
Correct. And then now that we've learned how to earn it for a week, let's learn how to earn it for a month. Mm-hmm. And it's not the same. It's not repeating what you did on the day. There are different concepts that you have to do if we're going to make this, And then he said, let's earn it for a season. Okay. And he talked about the seasons, and then he said, let's earn it for a year. But the seasons is what I wanted to talk about. And I took a snapshot of it on my phone last night. And so I haven't studied a lot. I just read through it real quick. But I said, if Andrew asked me what I want to do a podcast on, I want to do it on these seasons. Okay. And so, and I just want to take the first one and see where it takes us to. Okay. And then we'll go from there. We may do them all today. We may do one of them today. But he said the first one is a season of pressure to where you feel like you need to do more. You feel like there's something else out there. You feel like I need to make some changes in this area. This is where I need to be growing. I need to be getting better. I need to be taking that next step. What's my all-in move? And so, a season of pressure. So I just want to talk about that. When you first hear that there's a season of your life that you go through, and some of these, they just keep happening at different times. It's not just, at one point in your life. Yeah. We've all been through probably several seasons of pressure. I tell some people sometimes, there's sometimes where I've had a lot of debt in my life and been really happy about it because this is what we're trying to accomplish. And you had to do that in order to do it. And then there's sometimes where I've had debt that was way smaller than that just felt like it was on me, and man, we gotta make a change. So when we talk about season of pressure, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, I can't say that it's true of all of the seasons because I don't know what else.
Yeah, I haven't told you the rest of them yet.
But I can tell you that this one feels constant. This one is. So they talk about how some people perform well under pressure and some people don't. I don't think that that's true. I think that everybody is intended to perform well under pressure. It's just a matter of how you perceive pressure in your mind. Because it's like you said, there were seasons in your life or times in your life where a smaller situation felt crushing. And now you're in much more difficult situations than you were then, and you're not crushed. Well, what happened? You learned how to manage life with pressure on you. It wasn't that you ever couldn't perform under pressure. It was just you hadn't figured out how to frame it in your mind to where you could continue to work and move towards accomplishing things. And so anytime we feel like something's going to crush us, we tend to not do well. But when we know we can't be crushed, ultimately, it's really hard to get you down. And so the season of pressure, man, I think that it is constant and ongoing for me. I never really feel fully at peace with what I'm doing, no matter how great or lacking I seem to be at the time. The biggest feeling of not doing enough that I've ever had happened almost a year ago, and so uh, at that time in my life, I was probably the busiest that I've ever been in terms of actually doing things that were productive, and we're building people and we're building relationships. Yet it was the most pressure I've ever felt in terms of, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to
Yeah.
be doing. So it mathematically that doesn't make any sense. The numbers don't add up because I was doing the most yet felt the most lacking. Well, it doesn't have to necessarily correlate to how much you're doing for there to be pressure. You can be doing a whole lot and still feel a pressure for something that you're not doing.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think there's always a carrot at the end of the stick. I need something to chase. That's a good thing for me. The worst thing for me is that I would be comfortable or complacent where I am and just sit and feel like, hey man, I've made it. Maybe not forever, but I've made it for now. I don't believe I would function well in that place. In my personal opinion, is that no one really functions well in that place. I think that that's where we see most people kind of start to derail a little bit. Is in that I don't need to pursue anything right now, and we see it in marriages, we see it in friendships, we see it in businesses. Like, you need to continue to pursue intimacy with your wife. It doesn't matter how long that you've been married. You need to continue to pursue intimacy. You need to continue to be intentional. Like, there are things that need to keep happening. And if you're just like, hey, you know what, man, our relationship's pretty good. We can just kind of coast for a minute. Well, it ends up being destructive for your marriage. I'm not saying everybody you're going to get divorced, but it's definitely going to make it less efficient than it was. It's going to make it less satisfying than it was. It's going to make it less of a lot of things because the intentionality is gone. That pursuit keeps intentionality in your life. That pressure keeps intentionality in your life, and that's a great thing. Like, at the end of the day, man, if I woke up tomorrow and everything that I ever wanted to accomplish in life just was magically accomplished. I woke up and everything that I wanted to do, everybody I've been ministering to got saved. Now, all the financial goals I had, like, they were met. Bank accounts full, investments are flourishing. Family home is built. Got like a whole homestead situation going. So I've always wanted to probably never do that, but I've always wanted to do that. If I just woke up tomorrow and that was all there, I wouldn't know what to do.
Right.
I have no clue what to do. I guess I just take the day. You know what I mean? It's like, well, how long does that day turn into a month? And that month turned into a year.
Yeah.
And it was just because there's no pressure. There's no pressure. I need it.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for it. I'm very thankful for the pressures that life has put on me. I didn't always handle them well, but the Lord always used them, because some pressures are from the Lord. Some storms come from God. I'm not saying he causes bad things.
Right.
Storm is not inherently
No,
bad.
no.
Rain is good.
Yeah.
But some storms come from the Lord.
Amen.
Some of them we bring on ourselves.
Yep.
And the ones that the Lord sent obviously had a good purpose behind them. But the ones that I brought on myself, that wasn't God's doing. But yet, God still took that pressure that I stupidly, in most cases, put on myself and used it to turn and develop something in me. And so he didn't cause it, but he does use it. Mm-hmm. And God never wastes a trial. He's not going to waste a trial, even if it was your own stupid fault that it came. He's not going to waste it. And so, man, I'm very much in agreement that a season of pressure is good, but to me, that one's only seasonal if you make it seasonal.
Yeah, I think to some degrees there, I think that, because I have the privilege to look at the whole list there, and I think I read like maybe a paragraph on each one or whatever, and I think that that there are some aspects of it that are almost ongoing. Mm-hmm. But then I think that there's times where it's pronounced
Mm-hmm.
in our lives.
I agree.
But we're always, feeling that. I told you were talking about how it would be weird for everything just to be done and stuff. I was telling somebody this the other day. I think I was telling Devin the other day when we were walking. Some of the least productive days that I've had at Fresh Star is the day after I give an assignment to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so two reasons why I give an assignment or a workload, something that was on my plate, I give it to somebody else. Two reasons. Number one is because there's a lot on my plate,
Mm-hmm.
and if I can have somebody else to do this, then it can free me up to do something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is to make them better, to make them more useful, to
Mm-hmm.
make them stronger, to make them better. And so when I've given something off of my plate to you,
Mm-hmm.
or when I've given something off my plate to Zach or whatever, the next day or two, I found my productivity being terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, being absolutely terrible. Because when I have pressure, when I have more to do, when I have those things going on, my heart rate's a little faster, my intentionality is a little better, I have a purpose, I have more of a sense of what we're trying to accomplish, I have some urgency about me. Now, don't get me wrong if you've never listened to us before. I'm not talking about waiting to the last minute and putting stuff off and that kind of stuff. We're not that kind of guys. That's not what we do. We're very intentional about what we do. I'm not talking about procrastinating. I'm just saying that when we have a lot going on, when I have a lot going on, I move better.
Yeah.
Now, so when I have a task that I'm normally doing in my day to day, and I give it to somebody else, or if it completes, and now we just don't do that anymore, it takes a little while before I am able to transition into what's next. For a day or two, sometimes I lose my productivity because I lose my edge.
Yeah.
Just like the other day, we had something change. That when the ASAM changed or whatever, well, there's different questions that I have to ask. There's different mentality on how I have to do this paperwork now. Well, I'm still reading through it with the same mindset that I had before because I'm still doing it the way I did it before.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm having to add something else on top of that. Well, it's because I hadn't gotten the flow of it yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. When something you're used to doing ends, you would think I got more time, I can be more productive. But it isn't always the case.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to have that pressure, good to have that, extra intensity, that extra thing, doing it. But when I think about a season of pressure specifically, I think one of them being when I knew that I needed to become an LAC.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew there were some things out of my control that were blocking that.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that pressure because it wasn't just in my control. There were some other things that needed to happen. Also, the season of pressure when we're making the transition from one church to the next. I mean, not knowing we're not knowing what we're supposed to do, but knowing that we're supposed to do something.
Yeah.
But yet you don't want to. You feel the pressure, you feel the intensity, you feel the urgency, but you don't want to make the wrong decision.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know exactly what to do. There's not a A and B. There's a A is where you're at, and you're knowing you're supposed to go somewhere else. And so I do believe that sometimes it can seem the pressure can highlight the season.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that, like you said, we always need that pressure from somewhere at some point to feed us.
Mm.
Yep.
Yep. No, I agree, man. I think that was a really good perspective on that. And, pressure, say, pressure makes diamonds.
Yeah.
Pressure also breaks things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so pressure in itself is not an inherently bad thing. It depends on what you use it for. How do you harness the pressure? There's a way to use it well.
Yeah.
There's a way that it can break you and break everything around you. But ultimately, you get to make that call. You get to make that decision. And that's one of the things that, as a Christian, as a believer, as somebody who now has the Spirit of God on the inside of him, you have restored to you in a lot of cases, almost across the board, but there's, I guess, some limitation there. But you have restored to you your ability to make some choices. Before, so you were just going to be obedient to your flesh. Whatever's best for you, you were going to do that. And that's a lot of times what breaks us about pressure is selfishness.
Yeah.
And so we end up getting ourselves into binds, and then bigger binds and bigger binds, because we keep taking shortcuts to try to alleviate some of that pressure off of us. Well, the problem is, anytime you take a shortcut, you do still have to pay for it. You just got to pay it with interest later.
Right.
And so that interest will eventually bury you. And so my encouragement to people is, when you have the Spirit of God on the inside of you, don't do the selfish thing. Be willing to do the hard thing. Don't take a loan out with interest if you don't have to. And pay it straight up, man. Meet it where it is. Work hard. Some of you got to earn it. There's some things in your life that you need to earn. You need to go after. You need to work hard for them. You can take a shortcut, but you're going to pay for it in the end. And I got so many examples coming to mind, but I can't share a lot of those examples without it coming across wildly offensive.
Well, they're personal,
Right. I'm just telling you, there are a lot of examples of life where there was an action and behavior that was going to take consistency and time for you to win and for you to overcome this pressure that you're feeling. Instead, you decided to take a shortcut. And that shortcut's going to cost you, and it's going to cost the people around you. And a lot of times we take those shortcuts with no idea what that interest looks like. No interest rate guaranteed. They said, hey, yeah, we'll give you this loan. There's going to be some interest on the other side. We got no idea what that number is.
Right.
That number might be 300% interest. And you just don't know. And we will take it blindly a lot of times just to get out from under the pressure for the moment. And so we make a worse deal. You talk about your buddy who had an opportunity at a good deal and didn't take it. Well, imagine if he'd have taken a worse deal.
Yeah.
If he'd have said, hey, you know what? I'll only take this if you raise the price by $100,000. It's like, well, that's insane. Mm-hmm. That is insane. But we do that in life just to get out from under the immediate pressures of things. And pressure is not something to be feared. It's not something to be avoided. It's just something that you have to learn how to reframe, and then make a plan and execute the plan. Don't think that the plan's going to be fast. It's probably not going to be an immediate thing. It's probably going to take some time and some consistency. And if you just don't know what to do, talk to people that you've seen handle pressure well. Talk to people that you've seen be consistent and say, hey, look, man, what would you do if you were in this situation? And just let them tell you what they would do. It doesn't mean you got to do the same thing. It might not even work for you exactly what they would do, but I guarantee that you will leave with more insight than you had.
Oh, yeah. For sure. And that brings us to a word that to me is a bad word, and I hope that I don't use it very often, and I want to alleviate it. But a lot of people, they try to escape pressure with the word busy. Well, I'm busy. You see people at Walmart, and you're like, hey, man, what's up? Man, it's all good. Y'all been busy? Yeah, man, we've been busy. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the feeling is as long as we've been busy, as long as we're not lazy, mm-hmm. as long as we're not laid up, as long as we're not waiting on somebody else for a check, as long as we're handling our business, as long as we're busy, then we're okay. Mm-hmm. But if we're busy doing the wrong things, or we're busy being unproductive, then we're going backwards, mm-hmm. right? So a lot of people try to alleviate pressure by saying, well, I can't take on anymore because we're too busy. Mm-hmm. I'm busy. We're too busy. And the truth of the matter is, you're busy with nonsense.
Right.
Right. And so to me, it's a bad word.
And a lot of times it gets framed as everything that you're busy with is good. But right. something that is good can still not be the best use of your time, right? Okay. So we're filming this right now in the chapel at Fresh Start. It's not in horrendous state, but if I decided that I was going to clean this building spotless, get it in tip-top shape, it'd take me weeks. Yeah. It'd take me weeks to do. Well, the question is, what would I have to skip over the next several weeks to get this done? And at the end, when it's a completed product, would it serve that much benefit compared to what it's serving right now? The answer is no.
Mhm.
Everything that happened in this building would happen exactly the same way that it already is. It'd just be a little cleaner, be a little straighter. Some things would look a little nicer.
But let's take this. Let's say a group of first phase guys, and now it's 8 or 9 guys, and they decide that they want to take this project on and they want to make this chapel better or whatever. Well, first off, there's strength in numbers there, so it won't take as long. Second off, what are they taking from their time? Shooting more pool,
right?
Sitting on the couch more,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Sitting in their room being bored. And so, hey, you know, they can act like they're busy, you know, shooting pool or sitting on the couch or this or that or whatever, or they can take some initiative and do something.
Right.
So it works both ways, you know. So for you being a one man with a family that's got everything going on and stuff, yeah, for you to do this correctly, what is the cost analysis? What is the benefit versus the time and all that? But then you're sitting there with some people that are just trying to act like they're busy or trying not to have the pressure. Hey, they can do this and it can take them to the next level.
Right. And that's a really good point on the other side of it. So from my perspective, what I was trying to explain was it would be a good thing. Nobody would argue that it's not a good thing for me to try to make this building better. But just because that would be good does not mean it's what's best.
Right.
And there are a lot of things that you guys are busy with that are good, quote unquote. They're not best. And we're allowing ourselves to be busy and miss out on best because we won't reallocate our time correctly. And that was the word that I felt like the Lord had spoke to me last year. I remember telling you about it. We had a long conversation. It was unyoke.
Amen.
Unyoke yourself from these things and yoke yourself to this thing.
Yeah.
And when I reallocated that time, everything just blew up with what the Lord told me to yoke myself to.
The thing you were yoked to wasn't bad.
No, they were all good things.
They were all great things.
They were all good things. I was pouring into people constantly and consistently.
God just wanted that shift.
Yeah. And so, and I could have easily said, Lord, I'd love to tend to this, but you see, I'm already occupied. So how is this even possible?
But there was other people that God had raised up to do those other things. Now, whether or not they take it on is on them. But they were raised up to do that. But other people couldn't do this over here. God had prepared you in advance to do this right here and exactly what you're doing.
Right. You know? Right. And so that's the other thing, man, is sometimes when you sit in a chair too long, you don't think about it, but you're sitting in somebody else's chair.
Yeah.
The Lord's raised them up to do the thing that you're still doing, but you won't step out in obedience to the next thing, so there's no availability where you are. And
because you're in a comfort zone.
And that's selfish.
You don't want that. It is. It's very selfish.
It's selfish.
Because you don't want the pressure of the next step. What about if it doesn't work? What about if it doesn't happen? What about this and what about that? And so you're dying under the pressure.
Yeah.
But not only are you dying under the pressure, but you're sitting in somebody else's chair.
Yeah. My wife, one of her biggest concerns for me, anytime I involve myself in anything, is that I'm going to take too many chairs. Because she knows that I can.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's not my intention, but because I love the Lord and I want to do all things as unto the Lord, whatever I touch, I try to do extremely well. And I'm always willing, I'm always available. I make myself those things. And for that reason, I'm very easy to hand responsibilities to.
Yeah.
The problem is, I can handle a lot. I can wear a lot of hats. The problem is, if I'm wearing all the hats, there's a lot of people that could be wearing hats, should be wearing hats, maybe called to be wearing hats, that don't wear hats just because I'm there. And so my wife is always like very much trying to pull the reins on me a little bit so that I don't do that, because she knows, she's seen it happen so many times in the past where people just kind of become dependent on me, and I'll just sit in those roles because I do them well, and I'm like, well, what happens if I step away? This isn't going to be done well. You know what I mean? And that's a me problem.
Yeah.
That's a me problem.
but here's the other side of that is because I find myself in the same deal. But I think we go back to the same word there, and there's seasons. And I think that it is easier for me and you to jump into those roles, especially to start something a lot of times, because other people don't have the vision to how to start it. But once we do it, then they see how it's done. And if they'll just come along and do it the way we did it, and maybe add their little tweak to it to make it better or whatever, then it can be better. I think that it's not bad for you to take those roles. I think it's bad for you to stay in those roles. And I'm preaching to myself because God showed me one last night that I took the initiative on. I wouldn't have let nobody else do it for nothing.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it was one of those things that I just knew I could do.
Mm-hmm.
I could do it well. Felt like it was something I needed to do. I've been doing it for a year now, and it's probably time to give it over to somebody else. The issue with that is, in my mind, is well, who's going to be able to take it? Can they do it? You know, yada yada yada. But I think something that me and you need to realize sometimes is a good thing is that when I step out of that role, it's probably going to turn into a team effort.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably going to be 4 people
right.
that take on that deal. And I know you've experienced the same thing, to where when you've moved out of a role, it wasn't one person that was able to take it. It was 2 or 3 or 4 people that took that role on to be able to accomplish those things. And so we need to make sure as leaders that we're not holding people back, because we are, we'll get in there and do it. Yeah. Whatever we got to do, and we'll do it well. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I just think that we need to know when to get out and when to let somebody else know.
Yeah, we can't be so efficiency driven that we refuse to move.
Yeah.
And but there is just a perpetual fear with a lot of people, and I've experienced this myself, that what if I leave and it falls apart? Yeah. And man, there was a ministry that I had built up one time, very, very, very successful by every merit that you could. It was wildly successful, and I handed it off, and it got ran straight into the ground very quickly.
Yeah,
very quickly. And so it's like, for me, I was disappointed in myself. I wasn't disappointed in who followed me. I was disappointed in me, because I felt like I still actually don't feel like I left at the wrong time. I felt like it was the appropriate time to move, but I felt like I didn't properly train the person to take my place, which may or may not be true. I mean, the person had spent years under me watching things like that. They just didn't do what I did. And so at the end of the day, you said, it is on them to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the part that's hard. It's like, I can't make you do it. Even if I've taught you how to do it, even if I've trained you how to do it, I can't make you do it. But I know myself, I'm still going to bear the responsibility of it in my mind. And that's hard for me. And, but you can't allow that to stop you from doing what God's called you into. Yep. You just can't.
We'll just kind of wrap this up, and we'll probably do some more of these next week, but just kind of wrap it up. Hey, if you're in a season to where you feel pressure to move, to get better, to do, man, don't be upset about that. Welcome that. Welcome that pressure. Welcome, don't take on so much that you can't handle, but at the same time, man, have some good people around your life. Talk to them about it and everything. But I feel better when I have things to accomplish, when I have goals, when I have some pressure and some things that need to happen. And I think everybody else does too.
Praise the Lord.